session. And we are now recording. So I'm going to change the slides over and set them up for Giuseppe. We've got Giuseppe Tomasello, VP of Artificial Intelligence at Docebo. Good morning, Giuseppe. How are you today?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm doing great. And thank you so much for, being so many joining today from all over the world. I'm so excited to talk.
There's more than
Yeah,
100 people in the room already, Giuseppe. More than 100
that's
people already here. So excellent. I will hand over to you now. All yours.
fantastic. Thank you, Andrew, and
No
nice
problem.
to meet all of you. So just a little bit about my background before we get started talking about AI. I'm originally from Italy, but I have a quite international background. I start to work at the intersection of artificial intelligence and learning, actually in the far 2016 when artificial intelligence was, this very obscure field of computer science. And the way I started to work, it was just to solve a problem for myself. I was basically a student in China, and I'm a big passionate language learning, very avid language learner. And so when I was learning Chinese at the university, I started to build this software that can allow myself to learn Chinese. And really from that point, I started to enter in the world of, computational linguistics and natural language processing, which are techniques in order for computer to manipulate language. And then I started to build this first application and then became like a software that my classmates and my university then adopted. And really that was the foundation on how I got started. It was to solve a learning problem for myself. And that became the first version of a learning management system, which then became a company that I founded, Edugo AI. And then actually a little more than 1 year ago, after I built Edugo AI as a learning management system for schools and for higher education, I then actually sold the company. We were acquired by Docebo. And since then, we've been actually using artificial intelligence and generative AI specifically in the context of learning and development. So, and that has been actually fascinating to, apply generative AI in the context of learning management system for L&D. And one of the biggest problems that we found is the fact that knowledge, it's such an important foundational component in order to be able to create, L&D learning experiences. Because if you don't get right the knowledge management part of your system, then all the rest of your, learning management system will not be performing well. Because you need to have this foundational truth that needs to be set up in place. So. That said, I would like to then introduce a little bit what's happening in the world of AI. I know that AI is something that nowadays we are talking a lot about, specifically in the context of learning. But I would like to set the stage a little bit. What are the technology evolution and how, I can see the trend of AI is evolving over time, and why that is going to be so important for how we are going to rethink learning and development, but as well our job as learning and development practitioners. So the first, I would like to talk about the trends. But before we go there, actually, I would like to ask you a question and set a little bit of stage, understanding how you guys are actually thinking about knowledge management in your organization. So how many of you are, yes, sorry, Andrew.
Sorry, Giuseppe, I was going to say, so I've opened up a larger window, and what I'd like people to do is in the larger window, can you just tell us how you're using knowledge management in your organization? So we've seen, for example, Aaron has said in the chat there, he said that he works as a knowledge manager. In this large space, we've just opened this large space up, tell us, how are you using knowledge management within your organization? If you work in L&D, how are you using knowledge management? I'm really delighted. Thank you. I can see I've got a couple of people already typing in here. Aaron, I was going to ask you what you do and how you do that. In that large box, please do tell us. And the really useful for people is if you don't think you've got anything to share, trust me, you have, even if it's that you're not right now. The reason being is we can look through and see who's using this, what are they using, how are they using it. So please do tell us in that chat, how are you using knowledge management in your organization? I can see people. There we go. Right. Okay. So we've got. Oh, you wait for a moment, and then all of a sudden you get 3 responses come through. Okay. So Mark has said knowledge articles for IT, HR, and so on. That happens a lot, I think, isn't it? We've got a somewhat static LMS site working towards a curated site, says Maria. And let's look at Aaron. I work in service ops area of tech department, so try to utilize knowledge as a way to assist our users with self-serving IT issues, while also producing materials for service desk staff. Is that a fairly common approach, Giuseppe, for knowledge management? Is that how knowledge tends to work?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually what I can see from your messages is that each one of you are looking at different kind of knowledge sources in the organization. And that's one of the biggest problem that we see is the fact that there are those kind of silos of knowledge that lives in their like systems can be like knowledge articles, can be knowledge bases, can be really like even like content in the learning management system, and knowledge is kind of scattered across different places, right? So that's actually something that is it's so domain specific, and I can see actually from some of your comments that you guys are handling knowledge in different ways depending on how you're using it. So it can be for ITs, can be for sales, can be for different kind of use cases. So for example, I can see Hilda that the org is using Confluence pages, right, as a knowledge management. So Confluence is another tool. So there are multiple tools in the industry, yeah. And you can see that this knowledge is scattered across the places, and this is a big problem in the world of AI. Right, because if you have knowledge that is in different systems, and then maybe you have also contrast in knowledge. Sometimes some systems are outdated or actually have conflicting information. Yeah. We don't have the contextual knowledge to give to the AI in order to being able to understand what is the ground truth for your organization.
Yeah. It's interesting, again, all the technologies. We've got an LMS platform, we've got SharePoint, we've got all of those comments are coming out. Really interesting. 2 great questions, one from Claire and Michelle actually following up. We could have a long, deep philosophical question here about how do we define knowledge? How is knowledge different from data? It's different from information is one thing. Claire has asked, though, how are you defining knowledge management? So in terms of knowledge management, just a very brief, short, what would you identify as knowledge management, Giuseppe, just to help clarify that?
Absolutely. So knowledge management are all the practices that allows you to, manage the knowledge in your organization in the sense that to keep the knowledge that is up to date, that is synchronized, and that you can resolve a conflict between information. And that is actually how you manage the existing knowledge. And there is also another super important part that is related to how do you codify the knowledge that most of the time is, tacit knowledge in your organization that probably lives in the head of the subject matter expert in your organization, but is not really codified. And that is a big problem as, people, for example, leave organizations, or you need to onboard the new people in your company, and you have all these, informal knowledge that lives there that is not codified, so it's not shareable. So knowledge management is the solution to solve this problem, right? And now we can see as well that there is a huge evolution in the knowledge management space thanks to the introduction of large language models. And that's a little bit where I'm going to go with my presentation. In order to, so we have basically now a new solution called Knowledge Management 2.0 that leverage large language models and generative AI in order to solve those big problems that have been around for a long time in a new way.
Awesome. I'm going to close this window, everybody. I can see we've got a few people typing. Darren and Andy, I can see people already typing. I'm going to close this window down in a moment. In terms of knowledge management, I think you're spot on there, Giuseppe. To me, the knowledge differs from information insofar as that we understand how to apply information. And there's an awful lot of knowledge management, which is, as some people have said here, which I've noticed, is just putting stuff online and just go, there we are, we've given you knowledge. No, you haven't. What you've done is you've stuffed people with information. And it's how to curate that where people can apply it, I think, is the key part of it. I think that's where we get knowledge wrong. I am going to close that window down, Andy. I can see you're still typing, and Rianne's typing as well. I am going to close the window down because we're going to move on. Fabulous conversation. I would strongly recommend look back to the recording, everybody, and just have a look and see what people are using there, because this is the benefit of these sessions. It's seeing who's sharing and what they're sharing as well. So yeah, and Andy says your point on tacit knowledge is spot on. So absolutely, thank you, Andy. Let me put you back to the presenting mode. You now have the comm again, Giuseppe, all yours. Thank you, everybody. Fabulous feedback in there.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it was amazing. And actually, I need to go back some of those comments to review properly, because I can see there are a lot of interesting insights that you guys are sharing. So let's, I mean, knowledge management is a big problem, but as well, like now we have new technologies, and those new technologies are, of course, it's called AI, of course, specifically like a branch of AI that's called deep learning, and specifically a technique that is called generative AI, so the ability of those systems to generate new information. And the amazing progress we've seen the last years. I would love to show you a little bit how the progress, the trend of or velocity of this progress. So we started to work in artificial intelligence, specifically for natural language processing, or really like the AI applied to language a long time ago. Actually, I started in this industry, as I was mentioning, in 2016, but this is also go back to the 2000s. And the first attempts were to solve handwriting recognition. So the fact that you can write characters, for example, numbers, and then you're able to recognize those handwriting numbers, what are actually like digitalizing that. And that took like almost 20 years to go from, like the first version of those systems to superhuman performance. You can see the trend also in other verticals. For example, speech recognition, a similar speed, like 20 years to get to superhuman abilities. And then we got basically to, on the right of the graph, you can see reading comprehension and language understanding. We basically got to the first systems that can do barely some language understanding to superhuman performance in the span of a couple of years. And that is remarkable, because we are able to basically create new kind of capabilities of those systems thanks to the development of what we call large language models that really have been fueled this acceleration in capabilities. So if we zoom in a little bit of what's happening within those large language models, there is something super interesting. First of all, those models in their brain, let's say, in those weights of those large networks, they manage to encode the semantics. And that's something that is truly revolutionary. When I encountered this idea, I was blown away, because for the first time we can have systems that are capable of encoding semantics, meanings in numbers, right? And this is thanks to what we call embeddings. So what is really happening in the brain of a large language model is that they are creating this representation of meaning in a space where you can have, for example, king and queen as the same distance between man and woman in this space, and that means that now you can use algebra to do operations on semantics. Right, so you can say if king says to queens, then man says to what, and then the system will be able to say woman. You can do also for higher level concepts like country capitals. So same concept, you can guess what is the capital of Italy, giving the capital of England, and so on and so forth. So you're able to encode the semantic structures in numbers. And that has been really the foundation of this new paradigm. And that really has been what got me into AI in 2016 when I started to build those embedding for learning Chinese. So what I really want to say here is that for the first time, we have a model that is capable of creating a map of the semantic space. And that has massive implication for a lot of industries, specifically for learning and development, I believe. So let's look into some analogies in order to make this idea more clear. So I would like to share with you what large language model have in common with Google Maps, right? All the thing that they have a lot in common, and actually the thing that they have in common is the fact that Google Maps is creating a map of geographical space. Large language models are creating a map of semantic space, a very accurate map. And this is the first time that we have machines that can have accurate semantic representations. So Andrew, I would love for you to show the video. London, thank you. So once you have an accurate representation of a space, for example, you can say Google Map, what you can really do is that you can, climb the ladder of abstraction. What it really means is that I can zoom in and zoom out in this space. I can go from, a specific, building in London. Actually, there's a conference hall for LTUK. And go back to the, the Europe and see different kind of information as I zoom in and zoom out, a different level of details of information. This is something that we are very familiar with because we all use Google Maps. But now, the interesting thing is that we can do that in the space of language. So, Andy, can you show the other video of Peter Pan book? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so this is actually a book of Peter Pan, and as you can see, the first thing is actually the full book, and now what I built here is a little like a zoom in, zoom out a system where I'm able to zoom out and being able to just see one sentence that represents a chapter of the book, the chapter 1. There, the very interesting thing is that if I want to change the storyline of Peter Pan, I can just do at this level of abstraction, change one line and then zoom back up and being able to change the storyline of the full book, right? So, and this is something that is very, very powerful because for the first time I'm able to have a full map of semantics and being able to climb this ladder of abstraction. And this is something that we can use for sure in learning and development. So if we go back to the slides, okay, fantastic, thank you, Andy. I would like to talk about this concept of authoring, right? So imagine like now I can author a Peter Pan book using large language models with this kind of climbing the ladder of abstraction. So what if we take the same concept and we apply in authoring, in content authoring? That's what we've done at Docebo. So we have been rethinking about the concept of content authoring for learning and development, but on the foundational capabilities of large language models that can have a full map of the semantic space. And that's what I'm going to show you today. And that's actually open up amazing opportunities because not only we can enable traditional instructional designers to be more productive, but for the first time, we can also give tools to subject matter experts and the way we can encode also their very precious knowledge into our knowledge engine. So that is going to be the main topic of today. I'm going to show to you some actionable and some real example on how we're doing it, but as well as some ideas about the future and how we see about the future of learning and development evolving. So traditional authoring solutions have been mostly focused on the presentation layer. So I'm sure that you guys have been in your career been interacting in some kind of authoring tools that are able to handle graphics, layouts, media libraries. But really little or no help has ever done on the semantics, on actually the content that is produced. That was completely on the hands of instructional designers. We are now seeing, some authoring companies or LMS companies introducing some, large language model powered solution which might be great for a demo, right? You can demo that and say, oh, wow, this system is capable of creating a course right away, right out of the box. And even like it can be very useful for creating a first draft of some content. But if you're looking to produce robust, pedagogically sound, predictable, but as well grounded to your company knowledge, you cannot just do that by plugging a ChatGPT service. You need to do something that is much more complex, but as well as much more robust. And that's what is our focus at Docebo. So we've been really going deep into understanding the problem. And what you can see here is the outcome of a service design workshop that we've done in Milan, where between our AI team and a team of instructional designers, where we really went on details on what is the process of content creation in a company. And you can see that these actually involve multiple steps from identifying the problem from maybe executives till do a needs analysis, understanding what are the learning objectives, start to do some planning for the content you want to create, then making sure that the content is good quality, you go back to like the sponsor, you make sure that it's correct, then you deploy the content, and then you need to keep the content updated over time because information are changing. This is a very complex process, and it actually, in order to produce 1 hour of training material, it takes on average 40 hours of work. It's a very heavy, very complex process. And of course, if that is the cost for producing 1 hour of training material, we can only focus on some kind of content, just evergreen content, because the investment is very high. So what is the knowledge engine? Knowledge engine is the solution that allows us to create a robust system. And specifically is a robust architecture that allows us to have factual accuracy, but as well the organizational specific content that you want to embed, because every organization has their own specific knowledge and their own specific processes, so you want to embed into the system. So our knowledge engine is, imagine like as an abstraction layer. So it's another system that sits on top of large language model, and this large language model agnostic. So it doesn't matter if you're using OpenAI or Anthropic or Llama or other providers. The system is capable of adapt to different large language models, but as well, the system is capable of incorporating specific company knowledge, but as well pedagogy structures in order to ensure that the content that is produced is robust and pedagogically sound. That's how knowledge engine works, because just plug in large language models is not enough. It's not enough because large language model is kind of Google Maps, right? It's a Google Maps, but without the streets, without rules. It's very, very unstructured. You want to add the structures for creating something that you can feel confident about delivering. So to zoom in a little bit how that works is that the knowledge engine really is at the core of the system, and merge company knowledge with learner profile information on top of what we call a master ontology. Ontology is, the way, is a description of how the world works. But also in AI, we use ontologies in order to create this kind of graph that represents the structure of knowledge. And what you can do here is that ontologies can be about the specific knowledge you want to, teach, and the skills that you want the user to acquire. You can map that in one single ontology. That's very important. So this kind of give us the fabric of this knowledge space. And it's very important that we get the fabric very, very accurate, because that is going to be the foundation for our AI systems to leverage this knowledge that's very structured, that is, humans are in the loop, so they can check that information are factually accurate in order to then provide, any kind of learning experience. This can be, a content creation like with AI authoring, can be a virtual coach like an AI system you can have conversation, it can be an AI assistant that allows you to, create personalized content for directly learner facing. And all of that is based on the same fabric of knowledge space. That's why the analogy with Google Maps, right? So we are creating these kind of Google Maps for your specific company and for specific vertical of knowledge. Once you have this learning experience, so the learner interacts with this learning experience, we use robust assessment in order to go back and update the learner profile. That's how this is, it's a system that is a closed loop system, and I will go a little bit more into details on how that works. But it's very important that we understand that it's not just one direction, like we deliver learning, but then it's very important to then get the data from the learner in order to being able to update the learner profile and deliver more personalized experiences. So if you zoom in a little bit how that works, and of course I would love to show you an example, which is sales enablement, which is one of the, let's say, most popular or the most important L&D use cases. We can see that what we can do is that we can encode both prescriptive resources, and this can be, for example, career progression information, share sales competency maps, performance benchmark, rubrics for evaluation, and all of that can be encoded in an ontology specific, but as well with skills that are necessary. And so those are prescriptive resources. But then we can have also descriptive resources. Those can be, for example, Gong, which is a software for recording sales calls. So we can have actually all these data that are flowing in, and then they are matched in the same kind of ontology in order to be then organized. And thanks to the use of our pedagogy logic processing, we're able to create learning content. Here I have to say that it's super important that the way we are designing the system follow our three principles that are very, very important for everything that we do, which is inspectable. So at any time you can kind of like open up the knowledge engine, understand what's going on. Is explainable. So we try not to have black box AI, but really like AI that explains every step of the way what's going on, and is overridable. So at every step, you're able to say, okay, what the AI has decided is not the correct, is not a correct output. I can override that with my, and that's, I believe, keep this in mind, because this job of keeping this knowledge engine well oiled, making sure that we have the right data plugged in, but also that the system is performing correctly, it's such an important role as we look into the future role of instructional designers. So let's now jump in on more specific example. So we talked about the theory on how this works. I would love to then give you a more practical example. And so this is a quick demo of AI authoring in Docebo. This is a feature that actually, like, we are now doing beta. We have an open beta program for our clients, but as well we're going to release in November. So Andrew, I will please ask you if you can share the video. That would be the AI authoring. In the meantime, I can see you guys are like writing a lot of very good questions, and I'm. Oh. 100%, and I will try to go faster in my content so we can actually have take this opportunity to do a great interaction. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so let's actually see an example on how we are applying all this technology, and also like this idea of mapping this knowledge space into content creation, and how we are rethinking about content creation. it's very important that I say that we don't want to disrupt the user experience. Because sometimes you see AI tools that are, completely
but keep the
rethinking
questions
about
coming,
the
everybody.
process of
There
content
was some really
creation,
good
maybe
stuff in
with
there. There's
copilots
one from
or
Stephen that I'm
conversational
definitely going to be asking
UI.
you at the end,
And that's
Giuseppe,
something
just
that we've been
pre-warning you.
thinking very deeply
But there we
about.
go.
And actually what we decided to design our AI authoring, meeting
No,
the users where they are. So meeting instructional
you're doing
designers with an
fine. You're doing
interface that
fine.
looks very,
We were
very
only just
familiar to what they're
after
used to,
half
because that's
past,
the
so we've
current
still got just
workflow.
under half
And
an hour
that's
to go
actually
still,
what
so
you're going to
plenty
see
of time as
today.
it
And
stands
these
at
are
the
our
moment.
first
Anyway,
approach. We
I'll
call
come off.
this
I'll go back on mute
starting from
and hand back over
scratch,
to you.
or in the analogy about the Google Maps, bottom up. So you start with a very detailed, like Peter Pan full book, and you write the full book, right? And then you can do stuff to zoom out in order to modify the content. So this is a bottom-up approach, and that's what I'm going to share. So I'm playing the video. So this is Docebo. That's great. Okay, so thank you, Andrew. Okay, so you can see that this is actually what we call our central learning object repository. Is where you have in the LMS, of course, you can upload learning objects like Score, Max APIs, but now you have the opportunity to create content natively in the LMS. So we can start with a new AI lesson. I can, of course, put a title. Here is mastering elevator pitch. And here again, I start with a blank page, right? So you have, different layouts. It's very familiar with traditional authoring solution. So I can start with a layout. I have a full grid, so I can decide how I want to handle content. And here, like for example, I start with a small paragraph with an introduction to elevator pitch. I just write like a simple sentence to get it started.
Option. You can click
so
on
here
that,
you can already see that the AI can help you out
presentation
to
in full screen, which might be a bit easier for
expand, rephrase, or reduce the content. And that's actually very useful because it's kind of like giving little help in order to be more productive in your content production. You can see already like the paragraph has been expanded on top of what was already written as a like initial prompt. Of course, you can do all the traditional authoring on top and use AI to help you out with some tasks for writing the content. But I want to share with you one very important thing is like a bigger automation. So we start with small automations. We start to go a little like with bigger automations. And here you can see that we are generating now an assessment. So imagine you wrote the first page of content and now you want to test the knowledge from the learners. You can decide like how many activities you want to generate and as well what kind of activities. I can select multiple choice, single choice, true and false, and fill in the blank. And then click confirm, and in just like a few moments you can see that the system has generated those 8 activities based on the content that was the content was produced in the previous screen, but as well following a very, very structured pedagogy approach in the way that in the back end, what we're doing is like some sophisticated prompt engineering. What really we are doing is creating learning objectives and then making sure that we create learning activities that are pedagogically sound, and also generating metadata for the user tracking. All of that is happening behind the scenes automatically. We can go back to the main slides. Fantastic, thank you, Andrew. And so we saw that those are kind of like traditional authoring with small automations, but really what AI can enable us to do is to also have a higher level of automation. Once we start to encode like pedagogy structure, robust knowledge management, we can start to think about how we can create content, like a larger amount of content fast, right? So that's the reason why thinking about, and we're building this concept of smart templates, that is basically is a tool that is designed to automate the creation of complex learning content. So this is not just creating a simple presentation, which of course we can do with this tool, but also if you look at this graph, we have actually different kind of content that we can produce. And you can have like a more simple and probabilistic and creative, like creating a simple presentation, or you can have a more robust and deterministic content, for example, technical enablement or sales enablement, that you need to follow some specific rules and structures. Smart templates allows you to kind of like balance between the creative ability of large language model to create something new and fresh with the robustness of, for the creation of, content that has more, let's say, rules and structures and needs to be embedded. So we built a framework in the knowledge engine that is capable of balancing between the two, and is your choice on how much structure you want to give to the templates in order to create content. So the way it works is that you can have like a simple prompt, so you can prompt the system create a course, or you can have like those templates that are kind of like giving more structure. So Andrea, I will ask again, please, to share the video about the top-down. And actually, we call this top-down approach because from bottom-up is like you build all the content and then you can do automation. This one is that you start directly with the automation and then you can zoom in and create the content, right? So it's a different approach. It's like when I zoom in, zoom out in Peter Pan or in the Google Maps, right? So this is how we're thinking about giving you access to the ladder of abstraction for different points, and depending how much automation you want to get in your workflow. And also very important I mention, since this is actually the pedagogy is encoded in the smart template, this opens up the possibility for subject matter experts to now create content. This is something that you don't need to be an instructional designer now to create content. And as we will see, instructional designers actually need to do something else. And we are going to show that. So here again, we are in the central learning object repository in Docebo, and you can start creating the content. Here, instead of just writing a prompt, we can actually use an elevator pitch template. The system has been already configured for our own internal use case. So at Docebo, we drink our own champagne, and the sense that we're building the system and also using it internally. So you can see that already the system is asking which Docebo solution we would like to have elevator pitch for. And I can select one of the Docebo solution like learning impact, also about the prospect names. All these are variables encoded in the knowledge engine, and as well, what is the goal. Once I do that, I can click generate, and here you can see that the system has generated a content outline that is basically giving me instructional design points, but as well on the left you can see that there are the source document where those points are created from. Here it's still following this ladder of abstraction. I'm kind of like zooming in a little bit to see what will be the structure, and here if I want I can modify the structure. I can add it, for example, instructional point, I can add a new instructional point. And once I validate the structure is the one I want, then I can go to generate the content. And now here I can see that the content is generated, is a full-blown content, actually multiple pages content, and you can have multiple steps following a specific pedagogy structure that is encoded in this template. So we are balancing between having like subject matter expert and know about the specific product with following a specific pedagogy structure that we want to follow. So going back to the main slides. And by the way, I see that the conversations keep going in the chat, and I'm a little distracted because I see a lot of good questions, but I will keep it for the end. So I promise we're almost done with the presentation. Very quickly, here what we're doing is that we're using agents to assemble each step of the content, and we are also separating like the instructional design component, like creating instructional points, to the screen layout agents that are assembling the content in the right layout and right graphics, right? So there are multiple agents in the backend, multiple AI systems that are producing content at different stages. The way that I really see that is that we are thinking about when we are having automations like this one, and you start to sum all those automation. For example, we saw the text revision, assessment generation, and now we can see even more automation in like producing a full course, where really what we're doing is we are augmenting the human behind it. the instructional designer behind it. And this is something that is, I know is controversial sometimes, because you say, okay, what instructional designers will do in this world where AI can produce content? And I truly believe that the world is going that direction. An instructional designer job should evolve in order to be, relevant in this new world, but as well, instructional designers would be augmented by this technology. It's a very incredible opportunity. And then I'm so glad that you guys are taking the time to educate yourself and to join this kind of webinars, because it's so important. You understand actually how this technology works in order to prepare for the evolution of this position. And by the way, this is not just for instructional designers. I think that at any level and any kind of job role will be affected by AI at some point. And therefore, it's very important that we understand what are the implications. And now we can get augmented by this technology. A few years ago, I've created this framework that, taking inspiration from the autonomous driving framework. You have this 6 level of autonomous driving, where level 0, you're driving by yourself. Level 5, it's fully autonomous. We are still not there yet. Maybe in San Francisco, in some places, you can see Waymo fully driving autonomously. So we are approaching the level 5 also in autonomous driving. And I think we can draw this analogy as well for, the world of content creation, and even the world of tutoring. So this can be applied in different kind of job roles within the education space. And so level 0 is basically all the work was performed by, the learning designer. You have, you have to do all the manual work of creating all the content. And as you go higher in the automation, you start to embed more and more artificial intelligence until the point that you are going to get to level 5, where it's fully autonomous. But I still believe that in the fully autonomy world, the instructional designers will have a different kind of role. In fact, I would like to ask this question to the audience. Thank you, Andrew. Maybe so the question is, what does so we want to jump in, Andrew, to wow, fantastic. Yeah, I'm absolutely, I'm so fascinated. I'm actually taking the time now to read some of the comments, and it's fascinating. Yeah, and actually, so some people are mentioning about Philip Hardman, which I had the pleasure to meet her this summer in Copenhagen. It was a fantastic conversation, and actually she has a lot of great insights as well about this post-AI structural design world and how it looked like. So absolutely.
The engagement, loving the engagement in the chat. You are going to have to go back through this and watch the recording, I'm afraid, Giuseppe, because the chat is just outstanding. There's so much good stuff in here, and it's what I love about this. We've got smart people saying smart stuff. You see, it's like, that's why I come along. You're the guy who's leading the room, but you know what? Everybody else is coming up with
Wow,
stuff.
I love it.
So
no, there are so many useful and great insights. So I will comment on some of them. the QA component, I love that part because it's something that we are currently, like building frameworks
I
within
mentioned
our
it in the
team in
chat,
order
but I
to
did
make
mention
sure
in the
that
chat. But
we
yeah,
can
Phil
create
did
AI
a
system that has
session
the
here,
right
which you can pick up in
quality,
the
that produce the right quality. That's all the
webinar
point about the
archive.
knowledge
We've got some
engine. But in
replies
order to
coming
do
through here.
that, you need to actually
So Stephen's talking about
hire
quality of the prompt. So
pedagogy
there's a human
experts
element which is
that
going to
are
be vital.
capable of creating, for
Imini, I
example,
hope I pronounced
examples
that,
of
or
how
Emain.
like great
Apologies
output
if I
looks like.
mispronounced your name.
That's how
Guiding and double
you
checking
train
what the
AI,
AI is
right? Like
designing.
you
We've got
need to
QA from
give
Kevin as well.
the
Kevin
right
has also
example
picked up
about
this
what a
quality
great
assurance
quality
element as
looks
well.
like against like
Hilda,
average
expert
quality or
in
bad
knowing our
quality,
own
and creating all
organisation's
this
purpose and
benchmark.
vision,
That's a great
curators, editors
insight
and
about.
auditors.
So completely agree.
Targeted training, individual adaptable.
There is
I mean, Emily, making sure the solutions meet the needs, then putting your feet up. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not sure. But what are your thoughts, Giuseppe? Some of the things coming through.
Wow, I love accessibility is such an important topic, and I think AI can be really, really helpful with people that have, both like problem of accessing some content. You can have like people that are not able to have visual representation, so AI can help with that, right? Like AI can transform different kind of outputs. I showed you before, right? So we have a difference between like the pedagogy, and then there is a presentation layer, and we have like a system that is
I was going to
capable
say,
of
just in
then
addition to
taking the
pedagogy,
instructional points
we don't
and
understand
present it in different
andragogy, we don't
ways,
understand
and that's
pedagogy, we don't
actually
understand
improve a
geogogy, we
lot
don't
the
understand arithmetic
accessibility to
learning.
our
There is a
content,
whole
because then you
range
can
of
actually
learning
like produce
techniques
the
that we
same
haven't looked at yet, and we have
learning
to
experience,
understand
but with
those,
different
or we
kind
will
of
end up in that situation
a
where
way
we're
of
just
accessing to
producing
the
shiny
content.
stuff for
You have,
people,
of course, the
and the
prompt
way we build it.
engineering that is popping
Again,
up
loving
multiple
the
times in the
comments
chat.
here.
I
Prompt
completely
engineering,
agree,
says
but
Claire.
one trait of
Again,
great prompt
accessibility testing. That's
engineers
a really
is to
good
be
example,
subject
says
matter
Judy. I like
experts,
that.
right?
That's
So you
such
want
a
to,
useful
and there's
idea.
actually one point that's coming up more over and over. It's like, oh, is the job of instructional designer done, or all the experience of what they've done in the past is not useful anymore? Absolutely not. It's the opposite. If you're like an instructional designer today that has a pedagogy background, that is such a foundational for becoming a great prompt engineer, because you need to be able to, for example, understanding the quality of the output, so the quality component, but as well understanding prompts. You need to be able to understand how you can get the best out of large language model with prompt design. So absolutely. Yeah, I'm blown away. I'm blown away, Andrew. Like the quality of the questions and the comments is amazing, and absolutely, like you guys are really impressive in the insight you're getting. I'm getting a lot of ideas, so we should definitely like follow up offline. There is our there is my LinkedIn profile as well here. Feel free to reach out. I would love to keep this conversation going offline. I mean, we talk about some of those, in this discussion, but I think one important one to mention is the knowledge management, which is actually the core of our presentation today. Is that you need to become great also managing the right knowledge, because AI is capable of producing outputs and embedding pedagogy logic, but if the baseline is not correct, then all the output is not going to be great.
I'm going to have to
The
bring us in.
same is
We're
about
down to 9
system
minutes
design.
left, and I
You
want to
need
make
to
sure we get
think
some time for the
holistically
questions.
how
So
the
I'm going to
system
close that box down.
So this is no more just,
Thank
you create
everybody.
content, you deliver it. So
Again,
you have a XAPI
so
score
smart.
package you upload in the LMS. You have also like the part related to, collecting the data and being able then to think holistically how the AI will going to be able to create the next iteration of content. So there is a concept of learning architect, of course, that there is actually how you can think more high level about the architecture of the system, not just in the single learning experience. The data component is also super important. So there are a lot of directions on how this job is evolving. And so we don't need to think about zero sum, like, oh my God, the AI is going to automate content production, my job is done. It's like, oh no, this is actually open up a great amount of jobs that can be created, where actually you can have higher leverage, because AI amplify your skill set, your unique creative human abilities. So So I would like to wrap up. I know I'm skipping through quickly about this, but the concept of being able to do continuous assessment is something that is going to become so foundational. And so we need to think about content creation, but then embedding the delivery within the same system in order to being able to every touch point that the learner has across the learning journey to have a consistent data tracking strategy in order to then gather all this information in the learner profile. And this is actually our philosophy when we're building those AI systems, is that on one hand, we have the continuous assessment and our ability to create more robust assessment over time in order to verify skills, for example, is a great use case for AI that's now enabled to create personalized assessment. And so this is getting more robust over time, but as well we have the generation capabilities that are becoming more flexible. We're building better systems that are capable of generating more flexible, more personalized content, and those two will feed into each other, right? Better flexibility of content with better data will go together towards this vision of hyper-personalization. And we really believe that in the future learning will be hyper-personalized, and we as like L&D practitioner will be the one that actually are managing the system that is delivering learning at scale. And that's our philosophy on how we're building towards this future. So I know we have 5 minutes left, so, and there are, I'm sorry about that, I went a little long. I don't know, Andrew, you want to open up the last 5 minutes? Yes. One 100%, and thank you for that actually, because you know, I'm an optimist, right? I always look at the bright side because otherwise I would not be doing this. So I'm really trying to solve the problems, and every time I see a problem, I see it as an opportunity to build a better systems. One of the biggest problems, and that's the reason why I really want to focus the topic of this webinar on knowledge management, is that I see every day, right? Like we are working at Docebo with 4,000 enterprise customers, right? So we have large organizations need to adopt our solution, and there is the problem of being able to get the right knowledge in place in order to deliver this kind of like experiences. That's the first and foremost problem that I can see. That is actually affecting the adoption of this tool, and together with that is very interconnected. There is a problem, of course, of you know, legal and compliance, and there is a data sharing. That's something that we're taking also extremely carefully in my team. And I always say that you know, like we are becoming also a kind of AI law experts right now, because every time we're building systems, we need to think about these evolving frameworks, and that's super important and relevant once you want to adopt those technologies within your company, right? Having the discussion with the legal team, make sure that there is a right security and data sharing set in place in order to being able to adopt it. That's the reason why we invested, I mean, it's show today, of course, but we have built a full control panel to enable disable AI services in a very granular way to give full control. That's one way that we are solving it, but it's still like a very evolving field, especially in Europe. There is a lot of regulation, so that's one of the challenges that I can see. One 100%.
Mm.
Fantastic question, and actually I have two answers for that. The first answer is that thanks to, I mean, there is knowledge that we talk about tacit knowledge, right? It's the knowledge in the head of subject matter experts in our organization. AI can help with
Absolutely.
it. So AI, especially like the systems that are more, let's say, automated and simpler to use,
Mark,
like
I think there's
our
an issue
smart
around
templates,
literacy
really
AI
are
literacy
phasing subject
within the
matter
learning
experts that don't
profession. I
need to
think
have any
that's
kind
a
of
big gap, and it's
pedagogy
something that
background or
we
even
need to do.
time, honestly,
And
because
that's
they
a
are very
question of
busy within
ability.
their
So
work in
literacy, I
order
talk
to
about
codify their
ability,
knowledge. So
attitude,
AI can, with a very
access,
simple
and also
interface,
ethics as
you
well,
know, and
ethically,
we're thinking also
whether
about
we actually
conversational
understand
interface
how to
that
use
just
it as a
speak
tool,
to the
which I think
system,
is also
collect
leading in
the
part to
knowledge, and then
Stephen's
AI
question
will
about
take
why
care
do we
about the
focus on design authoring
organization
tools. Do you
and
know what? It's
delivery of
because
that
we're
knowledge.
content
So
driven.
that's one way that you can
Last
organize
question.
task
I'm going to go
knowledge.
to Michelle. I
There
know
is a
she's
second
left,
way is by
unfortunately, but she's got a
through
great
different
question.
kind
How do
of
you integrate the
integrations that you can
non-codified
build.
knowledge of the
In our
organization
knowledge engine
into your
example,
knowledge
we show
engine,
the
i.e.,
sales enablement
knowledge
use case with the
outside of
integration with Gong, for
LMS
example,
and so on?
as a system to track sales calls, and that can be an integration that can be done in order to being able to bring information. Thank you so much.